Coming up on your favorite podcast, the return of peak cinema. Yes, movie time. It's Lauren and I and Ryan sitting down talking about a Kevin Smith classic, Mallrats. She's never seen it. Neither has Ryan. This is unbelievable to me, and it's going to be worth our time in our discussion this evening. Haven't had Lauren on in about a month or so it's just great to have Lauren back. Hope we have a great conversation here tonight. Hope you enjoy it. It's Mallrats. It's peak cinema. It comes up next on the pod. Hey! It's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryan over there at his palatial estate. Ryan, hello.
I don't know in what world we would ever consider a one-bedroom apartment to be palatial, but hey, sure, it's good to be back. It's been a little while.
You got to do what you got to do. And in that same palatial estate, at least I think, who knows? I mean, who knows? Who could say, right? The great, the talented, the lovely Lauren Nelson Kane. Hey, Lauren, how you doing?
I am good. I have chicken nuggets that I have to eat, and I have a movie that I apologize, I will have to tear apart.
Cannot wait to hear it. Absolutely cannot wait to hear it. It's been a while since we've had Lauren in. It's been a crazy summer. All I know is I love when Lauren's here, and I will hug Lauren the next time I see her in person. Cannot wait. Cannot wait for that opportunity. I know she can't either. You could tell that in her kind of nervous laughter right there. But but you're excited for it, which is great.
That's fine.
With Lauren here, that means only one thing. Football talk. No, I'm kidding. No, with Lauren here, that only means one thing, and that is peak cinema, which, by the way, Lauren, in the last week, I've taken like 2 emails, Facebook messages, people just randomly going, hey, when are you going to talk about a movie again? I understand it's football season, but I only want to talk movies with Lauren. So when is the next one coming on? I said soon, I promise, and here we are. Lauren, it's time for peak cinema.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be back.
And we are going to try, we've said this a million times, but we really do mean it, that we have Halloween coming up, which is Lauren's favorite time of year. And
the best time of year.
Is it the best time of year?
Yes. That's a scientific fact.
That's a controversial statement, even in our own home, and I'm shocked that you would make it in my presence.
How dare you? How dare you? That's because you're a Christmas person.
I am. That's true.
I'm a Thanksgiving person. I'll meet you right in the middle. I love Thanksgiving. It's great. You know why? No gifts. The food is good. I get football. And my wife and I, last year we didn't do it because of COVID, but the years prior, we've done the doorbuster thing. And even if we don't buy anything, it's good people watching. You can't beat it. How do you beat that?
That's a good point. It's a really good point. I don't know if you can beat it.
And you don't buy anybody gifts, and you don't wear stupid sweaters, and you don't dress up in costumes.
Dressing up in costumes is the best part of Halloween, and how dare you slander it like that? I spend all year waiting to go to a party dressed as someone that is not myself. It's the best time.
When do you start to get into Halloween mode? I have to ask.
January.
November 1st.
Pretty much. I'll do the thing. I'll get into the Christmas spirit when I absolutely have to.
Look, all I'm going to say is Lauren and I have been together for 12 years now, right? It's been a long time. That's 12 different Halloweens that we have been together. And let me tell you that there have been, on more than one occasion, times where she has said on Halloween in costume, I know what I want to be next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has she followed through on that, or has that idea changed over the course of 12
Sometimes it changes. Most times it doesn't.
Yeah, I've known what I wanted to be for Halloween this year for a couple of months already. Well, and I'm already planning it.
Well, we'll definitely get you to spoil that when we get closer to some of these Halloween pods. So that's what we're going to do. We have a couple of movies that we've talked about, you and I already, a little bit, about some of the next couple movies we're going to do in light of the fact that we are approaching the fall. And with the fall means Halloween. I work at the Halloween capital of the world, high school, in beautiful Anoka. So believe me, we are going to be all in that again, I hope. And it's going to be a very exciting time, certainly. I know you can't wait. I can't wait. And the movies we've chosen, I actually am very excited to watch. So when we get to that, we'll let you know. I just got back from California. My first trip out to California. I've never been. 40 years old and I've never been. Have you been to California, you two?
No, I've never been further west than Wyoming.
I mean, in high school, I took a choir trip to San Francisco, so...
Does that count?
Technically?
Yeah, does that...
Technically?
I don't know if it counts. I'm just going to tell you, very spiritual experience. I really thought I was going to hate it. $4.59 a gallon for gas, that's a tough scene. I'm not going to get around that. But I drove a car, I think, that got 40 miles to the gallon. So it wasn't the end of the world for me. Just had a great time. I'll tell you what, you get in front of the ocean on the 17-mile drive at Pebble. No free ads. But
you hit a ball 17 miles?
No. First of all,
I'm kidding.
You know what's nice is like there is a lot of low, like you don't need a lot of money to do it things in California, which is actually really great, right? Because whenever you go on these tourist vacations, whatever they are, you're going to spend a lot. And I'm not saying we didn't spend a lot. We did. But there were a lot of things that we were able to do, like this 17-mile drive, which basically runs along Pebble Beach, Monterey Peninsula, and Spyglass Hill and the links at Spanish Bay, 4 beautiful golf courses, and the Pacific Ocean, and all the cypress trees of the Pacific Ocean, and all these surf areas. And it's like $10. It's a 17-mile drive. Takes you about 3 hours to get through, and it is beautiful. And it is peaceful, and it's just waves and dogs and seals and surfers, and you're just like, I get it. I understand why people pay the taxes and why they live here, because this is incredible. I would pay for this every day if I had the chance. Very spiritual experience. I think you two would enjoy it.
Well, I'm glad you had that enlightenment. I would love to go to California. I know Lauren wants to go to California so we can go to the Avengers campus.
Yes.
And I would too. I think it'd be fun. But
look, I'm not a child. There are other reasons. I'm just saying Avengers Campus is there, and if we're going to be there...
You might as well. Absolutely.
We might as well.
Wasn't there some like murder mystery museum in Seattle or something you wanted to go see?
Oh, okay. So it's not a murder mystery. I think it's the EMP Museum is what it's called or something.
We didn't go to that when we were in Seattle. There is the Grunge Rock Hall of Fame up there museum. That was really cool. I enjoyed the hell out of that. The Pop Culture Museum, I think is what they call it in Seattle. I was there for that. That was sweet.
Did you happen to load up on guns and bring your friends?
Shut up. God damn it, Ryan.
Just put on some Soundgarden, blend it in. Everything was fine. Don't worry about it.
Did the museum perhaps send you to Nirvana?
Oh God!
It kind of did. It kind of did.
It's my second Nirvana joke in 2 minutes, and Lauren is heated about it.
I'm just gonna tell you, it was I had never obviously been to the ocean before on that side, other than you stare at the Puget Sound from Seattle, but that doesn't count. I mean, it counts, but it doesn't count. Not like this counts. And we were in Monterey. We had lunch on the pier on the ocean, surrounded by water, and we could watch seals jumping. And I'm just sitting there going to my wife, like, how does it get better than this? And also, no bugs in freaking California. Not one goddamn bug in 4 days. It was incredible.
It's interesting that you say that, because I had a similar experience when we went to Florida, where we were on the Gulf side, and for whatever reason, wherever we were, really no bugs at all.
Yeah.
No. Oh my God, that was the best freaking vacation. And we went to. This is our honeymoon, and we go to Florida, a particular part of Florida where a bunch of old people are. So there are.
Oh, that's the best time to go. They're going to bother you.
There's no one on the beach. There are no bugs. It's hot, but it's not too hot. It's sunny, but I'm not, blistering in the sun. Oh my God. And
I gotta say that ocean air does wonders for my allergies. I've never felt better than those 7 days that we were in Florida.
Does wonders.
Why do we live here?
Yeah, I said the same thing to my wife. I'm like, think about this. I teed off in late August in California on the ocean, 67 degrees in beautiful Half Moon Bay, California, with no humidity. And I sat there and I went, no bugs, no humidity, 67 degrees. why the hell do I live in this dump? Like, why the hell do I live in this rat hole that's humid and hot and shitty and bugs everywhere? I mean, I just, there's bugs everywhere in this goddamn state. And it's a drought. It's 100 degrees here. It's like, what?
The entire time you were gone, it was like 90 and the air was wet.
Yeah. I was getting calls from people that are like, dude, my sweat is sweating. I'm on the golf course and I got there's water coming out of my ass and I swear nothing's happening. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with any of that information.
I was saying, when we went on that trip for our honeymoon, I did say that there seems to be a distinct difference between lake humidity, like lake ground humidity, swampy sort of inland
swamp humidity, yeah,
right, and ocean air humidity, where it's that kind of tangy salt, just blowing fresh off the water kind of humidity that you just appreciate.
Yeah, I loved it. I only spent 3 days. I'm not saying I want to live there, but every year or every other year, I think I will be making a pilgrimage to California. We stayed in San Jose. We drove up. Monterey is where you got to go. You got to go to Monterey. Got to go to Carmel. What an amazing time. All right. I cannot wait to hear about your next vacation. And that's vacation talk here on the podcast. I want to thank you all for joining. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get to it. We are deciding that we needed to talk about a movie that I feel like Lauren and Ryan needed to see, being comic book buffs as you are. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like you needed to see Mallrats. Mallrats by Kevin Smith, the Kevin Smith film. This is Kevin Smith's second film. His first film was obviously Clerks, which he did on like a $40,000 credit card max out budget, and it made $40 million. And Clerks is terrific. If you haven't had a chance to watch Clerks, or it's been a long time since you've seen Clerks, I encourage you to go watch it. This is his second film that the studio said, you know what, we're going to give you lots of money to make it. See what you can do. And it was a commercial flop at the time, horrendous flop at the time, but it has now sort of found this sort of cult classic niche status, and it's kind of interesting, and I thought you two needed to see it. Here we are, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I know Lauren has some thoughts about this, but I'll suffice to say that I understand why it flopped.
Yep.
I do too. I understand why it flopped.
It to me, it didn't hit that nerve for me that it seems to hit for a lot of people. I'm not really sure why. There were just a lot of points in the movie that really just didn't seem to fit for me. It was really hard to kind of go with the suspension of disbelief on some of that stuff. I didn't hate the movie. I just didn't fall in love with it while I was watching it. So there's a bit of a difference there for me where a lot of these, I shouldn't say a lot, some of these movies that we watch for this podcast, I detest as I'm watching them, like Tomb Raider. I will never watch that movie again. But this movie, if I watched it again, maybe something else clicked. Maybe it hits me in a different mood. Maybe I'm not quite as sober as I was when I was watching it, and it's a little bit better. I don't know. But on first watch, it wasn't one that really captured me.
Well, and one of my big things with it, and now I feel like I've watched it 800 years ago, when in reality we probably watched it a month ago. So all I know is like how I felt about it, which is that it feels, I haven't seen Clerks, and I'm sure we'll get to that eventually, but it feels like a knockoff of a movie he's already made. A, and B, I hate everyone in this movie. Like, everybody is such an asshole. And not
with the exception of Jay and Silent Bob. Because they're just so.
Jay and Silent Bob are terrific, and Jay and Silent Bob are holdover characters from Clerks. So if you watch Clerks, you'll meet Jay and Silent Bob for the first time.
Well, and also, like, I'm usually, I don't know, I like Kevin Smith, and I usually come to his defense for a lot of his weirder movies, like Tusk or something. I just I tried so hard to get behind it, and I just couldn't. I spent the whole movie being like, why were these women with you to begin with? Why are you such a piece of shit? How have you learned nothing? God, All right. We'll get into it. I was not a super huge fan.
You know what? That's what makes this great, because we have not had a lot of movies where we can go back and forth like this on this. Because I come down on the side of I like this movie, but I have problems with it. It's an interesting, like, it's a watchable film for me. I've probably seen it 10 to 15 times, maybe 20 times. There are things I like about it a lot. There are things I don't like about it a lot. And there are some things that I can get past. There are some things I can't get past. But in the end, I find it to be a decent watch. It kills time. It's as Kevin Smith movies go, it's good. It's not better than Clerks. It's not better than Clerks 2. I don't think it's better than Chasing Amy. But I think it's better than some other films, and I think he has moments where you're like, God, he's brilliant. He really writes great dialogue, and that's the stuff that kind of sticks out. And obviously, to get Stan Lee in a film, probably 10 years before he becomes he was already famous, Stan Lee, but like to this generation of people, he's a different animal now than he was in 1995. And that's what makes me feel like the film was 10 years too soon.
Well, and that's another thing, is that it's, in that sense, maybe it is, but also like it feels a little dated.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about mall culture, which is not a thing anymore. It hasn't been a thing for, I feel like, quite some fucking time.
There was a kick-ass mall in California. I just want to say that for the record, but keep going.
So mall culture is still real for you, and that's great.
No, it was just a kick-ass mall. I'm just telling you, there was great energy in the mall in San Jose. All right, can be continued. I'll tell you that story later.
But I feel like we were severely on the tail end of it, even when I was in high school. You know, it was not what it was. And in addition to that, this is like a movie that posits that, like, if you're a super huge comic book nerd, to the point where you would know what Stan Lee looks like that's still not popular. Whereas for the last 15 years, it has been a very big deal. It has been very mainstream. And so it's a little dated in that sense, which is something that I could totally get past if I gave two shits about anybody's feelings for the entire runtime. But that's just me.
Oh, I love it already. It's so good. All right. Well, before we get to all the categories, obviously, we got to give some background info, and then we'll talk about the characters specifically, and I'll get your opinions on all of that. First, like we do in every podcast, we have to go through what the domestic top 10 or so was in that year of 1995. You were born then, weren't you?
Yes, I was born then.
I just want to make sure, because there's times I don't know anymore. 1995, I was 14 years old, and I think you could say that 14 is a real sweet spot year, especially because that, for me, again, I grew up in that last of the mall culture. I grew up in the last of the no cell phone, low-speed internet culture, where dial-up was about 97 for my house, 97, 98. This is movies were a big thing to go do. Hanging out in the mall was a big thing to go do. And at 14... the young men in the village are starting to stand up and be accounted for. I remember 95 very, very well. Here's the top movies of 1995, just so you know. Batman Forever, number 1 at $184 million. Where is Batman Forever in your list of movies?
That's really disappointing.
I love Batman Forever. Lauren and I feel differently about this one.
We're going to have to watch that one again, too, because that's another film that I get it. I like Batman, so I'm okay with it, but it's not great. It's definitely better than Batman and Robin.
This is, I'm not kidding, the first Batman movie I've ever seen.
I saw it in
Batman
theaters.
Forever.
Saw it in theaters. Thought Nicole Kidman was hot.
I was 2 years old when it came out. But
tough scene.
It was the first time I watched it, it was a storm, and we were sitting downstairs in my parents' basement watching that movie, and it was the first Batman movie I'd ever seen, and I loved it. So
there you go. Some of Val Kilmer does it for you.
This is the first Batman movie you've ever seen, and you continued on to be a lifelong Batman fan.
That's correct.
I'm Sorry.
I will say that also came with years of having watched the Batman animated series on top of that.
Yeah.
Well, that's acceptable.
There you go.
So,
that's fine.
So I had been conditioned to like the character already.
Number 2 on the list is actually a great film. Apollo 13 made $172 million that year. Toy Story, the original, made $146 million. Pocahontas, one of Lauren's favorite, $139 million. And number 5, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, $103 million. Jim Carrey could do no wrong in 1995. I just want
one of my all-time favorite movies that absolutely does not hold.
No, it doesn't hold up at all. It's not good. The first Ace Ventura is still one of my all-time favorites, but yeah, that one's not good. Casper is number 6.
Aww.
Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third installment of the Die Hard franchise, does $92 million. Crimson Tide, a great film, does $91 million. GoldenEye, $91 million. It's number 9. And Waterworld, which was actually considered a flop, made $88 million. Problem was it cost him like $110 to make it. That's a tough situation. Dangerous Minds was 11. 7 was 12. Congo, 7 was 12. But 7, oof. 7's still creepy. Congo, While You Were Sleeping, and Get Shorty are the top 15 in 1995. Kind of a hodgepodge, a little all over the place. Let's just say for Mallrats, not anywhere near that. I think it made like $2 million in box office revenue at best.
Oof.
Not good.
That's bad.
It's not good.
That is bad.
It did much better with its DVD sales. But as far as box office release, it was a total flop. Absolutely horrendous. Critics hated it. And for Smith, it was hard for him to accept at first because with Clerks, like he struck lightning in a bottle. Like everybody loved Clerks. They loved the black and white. They loved the simplicity of it, the dialogue, the good storytelling, the characters like Dante and Jay and Silent Bob and all of them. They were just amazing characters. For whatever reason, they were thinking they were going to get that in this film, but they got something kind of like it, but it was sort of like Diet Clerks, and it just didn't work as well, I don't think, for the critics at the time, and they just didn't get mall culture, they didn't get nerd culture, they didn't get Jason Lee, or actually they liked Jason Lee. He's the only person that got reviewed positively in this film, but didn't understand Shannon Doherty, Jeremy London, Ben Affleck, didn't understand any of those people.
See, this is like my inherent problem with it. And like I said, I have not seen Clerks. I obviously generally know what it's about, so take this with a grain of salt. But it feels like they are trying to make that movie again, and they have to change it just enough and put just enough like other stuff in it to make it a technically different movie. But it still has that feel. I mean, how much did they... It looks like it was made for $5. So for you to tell me that they gave him money to make this, are you freaking serious?
I think he had a budget of about $7 or $8 million, which in 1995, for a comedy, I mean, that's basically it.
He spent all of that on comic books and weed.
No, the comic books, okay, because I looked this up. The comic books in the movie are his personal stash that he had to buy. Well, he had to buy back because he sold a ton of them to make Clerks. But yeah, I'm confused. I'm confused about the budget of this movie. Like Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead looks like it was made on a bigger budget than that. So $7 million.
Part of it is the fact that it's the single set. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot on the set. The Eden Prairie Center, which is, by the way, just a stone's throw from where we live, down in Eden Prairie, the southern part of Minneapolis area there. Basically, they filmed everything right there in the Eden Prairie Center. Why? Because the mall was half vacant at the time. It was easy to build sets, and they filmed it right there. It was dirt cheap for them to film it there. I think they spent the bulk of it on some of the actors. I think Shannon Doherty cost them some money, is my guess.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And you think about when he made Clerks, he didn't have big-name actors. Like, they were his friends. They were pals of his. And so there was no I mean, you didn't pay the actors anything, really. I mean, they were just... So you didn't have to worry about egos and everything. It was just like, oh, we're a group of friends, we're going to make a film. And it worked out perfectly. There was kismet. It was natural. This is different.
Yeah. It felt a little forced. It feels a little forced. And on top of that, like... I have story problems. I have character problems. I've never said this about Kevin Smith before, but you can tell it was written by a guy. There's just, oh my God. And okay, and I would like to talk about this movie some other time, so I will refrain from like delving into it too much. But I rewatched Dogma recently, which is one of my favorite Kevin Smith films.
Yeah.
I mean, when was Dogma made? Like a couple years after this?
Yeah, about 98, 99.
Holy shit, what a difference. What a major difference in character, in story, in dialogue. And
he makes Chasing Amy right after this, which Chasing Amy is a really good film with a lot of the same actors. It's a really well done film as he starts to kind of build this core stable of folks. And Dogma's loaded. The Dogma cast is off the charts. It's so good. And yeah. Smith, I think, like, as we look at some of the stuff here in the stats, and then we'll get back into some of the characters and the story issues as we go through the plot. 57% currently on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it was 57% when it came out. I think folks have flipped a little bit in recent years. It's got an audience score of 82%. So most people like it. Ebert hated it. Not a surprise. Again, as Smith has even said, too, that he maybe made it 10 years too early. With the modern nerd culture, he thinks if it would have been, if it would have came out in 2015, it might have done, huge. And maybe. We mentioned it was at the Eden Prairie Center. Smith, there were a lot of things he just didn't know about big budget filmmaking. So he was learning a lot of things on the fly. So those are just some basic stuff. First film also for Jason Lee. Jason Lee goes on to have, out of all these actors, it's interesting who comes away with the pretty good resume at the end of this film. Like 3 people who you thought were going to be big weren't, and 3 people you didn't think were going to be big became pretty big stars. And Jason Lee kind of being one of them. First time for him, and again was received positively. About the only person who was pretty consistently throughout this thing. Cast, got to go through the cast, and then we'll go through the plot. Shannon Doherty is your lead name, your headliner. At the time, she's doing 90210. She's a big star on television. Unlikable as hell. I think people don't like her on 90210. And guess what? People didn't like her here either. Are you a Shannon Doherty fan? I
mean, I think it would be a little much to call myself a fan. I think she's talented, which is why she kept getting work during this time. But she's like a notorious piece of shit.
Hard to work with.
Yeah.
Difficult to deal with is the term, right? Jason Lee plays the part of Brody. The kind of, I mean, how do you describe Jason Lee's character in this film?
An ass.
Insufferable.
I kind of like Brody in this film. I agree with the critics. He's the most likable piece of the film. Not to say that he's the most likable guy, but he's got energy in his part. You can tell he's raw. Like, you can tell he's not really a natural actor at this point. It's very raw. It's not, but there's an energy to it. I sort of dig it. There's something about him I kind of like. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like Brody. The guy who I really don't like, and I've never liked, Jeremy London and his role as T.S. Quint.
He's kind of whiny.
Yeah. I'm bored to tears by him. He does nothing for me. Understated. And my note that I wrote down, and it's a note that I stand by, I feel like he just gets outworked in every scene he's in. He's like a lazy big man in the NBA who just gets outworked on the offensive glass the entire night. Like, just can't get anything done. That's what he reminds me of. He
reminds me of the late career Big Show, where he just kind of shambles out there and gets, tossed around by younger, hotter guys. And you just you're left asking yourself, what are we doing here? What is Big Show doing here?
And Jeremy London's supposed to be a guy that's going to have a career. Like the London brothers, Jason London, I think, was in Dazed and Confused. And, everybody kind of thought, well, these two guys, they're good looking, they're twins, they're going to take off, they're going to be big time actors. But it's like, here's the problem with that. They actually have to be able to act at some point.
Yeah.
And I feel like these guys are what we like to call all hat, no cowboy. Like, they look good. They look good in the part. They look the part, but then the bell rings and you find out there's not much going on there. And that was the case with Jeremy London. I just thought like Jason Lee, who's not a pro actor at that stage, is literally carrying him through every scene, and it just shouldn't be that way.
Well,
if you put both of those guys, Jason Lee and Jeremy London, if you put them in Face Off, I think Face Off becomes a better movie 2 years later.
Wow, you shut your mouth.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
You close your hole when you're going to say stuff like that. How dare you? Face Off was awesome. We talked about that on this podcast. Don't make me go back into the archives.
No, I think part of the issue, so I hate Jason Lee's character so much. I think he is such a pathetic dickweed. I know he's supposed to. That does not make me feel better about him. I think the reason that people found him likable is because he is so... there are really two main characters. It's Jason Lee and T.S. Quint. And Jason Lee is so much better at conveying what he needs to convey than T.S. Quint that people are like, yeah, he's likable. And I'm like, he's not fucking likable. He's a jackass.
Just because you can understand his motivations doesn't make him good.
No, exactly. Shannon Doherty breaks up with him in the first 5 minutes, and I'm like, good for you.
Yeah, it makes Shannon Doherty likable in the first 5 minutes. You're
does.
like, I like the hell out of Shannon Doherty. What are you talking about? It's great.
Maybe Shannon Doherty's character is a horrible person. I really don't care. And I never get to know that. All I know is that she broke up with a complete loser, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Although I have to say, in the defense, Ryan, real quick, he is playing Sega Genesis, and he is playing NHL 95, and he is playing the Hartford Whalers, and so there is a little part of me that kind of is like, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Hey, man, the Whale, they beat Vancouver, once in a lifetime. I understand that. Like, I get it. There is no Hartford Whalers anymore, and I'm sad about that, so I have a soft spot for it. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, before this movie, I couldn't pick Shannon Doherty out of a 2-woman lineup standing next to my sister.
Well, that's a disgrace.
But the fact of the matter is it sounds like, from everything I've heard through this process of getting ready for this pod, I mean, to make her likable is kind of a feat.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was not super thrilled with most of the men in this movie. Like I said, outside of Jay and Silent Bob and, the great Stan Lee, who really is just a terrific person.
Stan Lee is great in this film. We'll get back to him in a second. Other actors that you need to know about in this film. So again, Jeremy London, I mean, he's just a walking broomstick. I mean, there's just not much going on there. And it's pretty... Jason Lee outacts a broomstick. That's what the film should really be called. Claire Forlani, who's actually a character actor. She's been in a lot of things. She's actually, British, I think, got a British accent. So she has kind of a weird American accent in this film that she's trying to make. I love her, don't love the character, and the accent doesn't work.
No.
It's too bad because she's a decent actress and a swell-looking gal. She actually has chops compared to some of these folks in this film. It's just not here.
Well, Claire Forlani is in Meet Joe Black, I think.
Yeah,
and
I think you're right.
She has this thing in that movie too, where she's, she has this kind of air about her. She's very breathless or something. She's just this kind of idealized version of a beautiful, low key woman. And she, in that movie, I got other things to say about Meet Joe Black, but in that movie, it feels like it kind of works. It works not just for her character, but it works for the other characters in the movie. In this movie, it's they harness that and take advantage of that, but only so that she can have no personality and no dialogue. And she breaks up with her boyfriend for a perfectly valid reason and gets back together with him Why?
Great question. We'll get to that when we examine the plot of the film. I have no idea what the hell is going on there. And she's basically in it for 3 scenes as Brandy Svenning. Now, granted, she's talked about all film because, Jeremy London's one track and offers no nuance. But she's somebody who I'd like to have seen more of. Ben Affleck, a young Ben Affleck, plays Shannon, the proprietor of Fashionable Mail, a store in the mall. Ben Affleck just came off of doing Dazed and Confused and got this opportunity. And I think if you watch this film in 95, you're like, Affleck played a dickhead in Dazed and Confused. He plays a dickhead here. That's all he's ever going to play is dickheads, and he's never going to amount to anything. And then he does Good Will Hunting like 2 years later.
I don't think anybody would have guessed that Ben Affleck would be an Oscar winner, especially within such a close vicinity to the beginning of his career.
Yeah. Like, the second film of his career, he's basically a predator. He's basically a sexual predator, and he's a terrible guy, and he's impossible to root for and impossible to like. And yet here he is. He's the guy who comes away unscathed in this film.
To his credit and to the movie's credit, you're not supposed to like him.
Yep. So he's successful in his job in this film.
Yes.
100%. Maybe not the best written character in the world, but Ben Affleck pulls it off. They needed a dick. He plays a dick really well.
That's, you know what? He probably came in for one day because he was in the movie for like 2 seconds, I feel like, and just knocked it. I don't want to say out of the park. I'm not quite sure anybody knocked it out of the park. But did his job and went home. He got paid that day. Good for him.
Good job, Ben Affleck. We salute you.
Hey, little pat on the butt. Go take a shower, kid.
Thank you, kid.
Nice work. Good game today.
Give me the ball. Well. Good job. Hit the showers. Well done.
Game ball goes to Jason Lee. Sorry, Ben Affleck, but
next, another actor. We got 2 more. I just want to throw 2 other names out here in this one. One of them who it's an interesting career. Up to this point in the film or in his career, he does a lot of these kind of parts, kind of smallish character actor type stuff. Look what he's done since. It's really incredible. Michael Rooker playing the role of Mr. Svenning, the overprotective game show producing dad, which I don't understand. He's kind of Lex Luthor type with the bald head. Michael Rooker's been in a million things before this film and a million things after. He's the one guy that you look at and go, why did Michael Rooker join this film? I have no idea. Your thoughts on Michael Rooker?
First of all, Michael Rooker has looked the same my entire life.
Yes, exactly right. He has not changed.
So I'm like, we're in the middle of watching this movie. I pretty much don't like it from the bat. And all of a sudden, Michael Rooker is in it. And I'm like, why? I mean, he's done other things.
Certainly has. He's been in Tombstone. He was in Days of Thunder, 2 of my all-time favorite films.
This is where all the budget went. It went to Michael Rooker and Shannon Doherty to be in this movie for like 5 minutes. Like,
Michael Rooker, you get to have your ass on camera within 5 minutes of the film starting. You in? Yeah, dude, sounds awesome. I haven't shown my ass on camera in years. This is going to be great.
He just says yes to stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, I think at that point in his career, he was just like, I'll take it. Give it to me. Last one, the very lovely Joey Lauren Adams as well has a small part in this film, although she's really just famous in this film for trying on underwear in the middle of the store without going to a dressing room. I think that's about it.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know. She's kind of everything I've seen her in. She's just kind of like a delight.
Yeah, she's a delight. And so is Ethan Suplee. Is that how you say?
I gotta say on Joey Lauren Adams that those scenes where she's in it, just clearly just trying to change. Those were the scenes where I saw them and I'm like, okay, yeah, this was written by a dude.
Yes.
And it's weird that Kevin Smith writes himself as the guy who gets to run in on her naked as she's changing in all these rooms. Like that's the
and never good intentionally, writing. Right?
Yeah,
that's
good
the folly of the nice guy.
Yep.
It's never intentional that you're a creep.
No, of course not. Why would you ever think that? And Ethan Suplee as the guy staring at the sailboat, or the picture, is a delight. It's a great part. It's a great bit. I love that they go back to it often. It's very, very funny. I think he's great in that part.
I think that's my favorite bit in the whole movie is him. Just every so often they just pan back to him, and like kids are coming up to him being like, "Oh, it's a sailboat. Get out of here."
I love at the beginning. He's like, "Hey, it's not happening today. I brought a lunch and a soda, and I'm not leaving till I see this goddamn sailboat that everybody keeps talking about."
It's almost like a little transitional vignette that they keep using, but between parts of, like, it's almost like the between acts in the movie, they go back to him, say, well, "How's it going at the sailboat? All right, thanks for the sailboat update. Let's go back to the movie." It's if you had a narrator, I think that even might have made it a little better at that point.
It's what makes this kind of interesting, because like Smith gives you these flashes of like, that's really funny, like that's brilliant, that's smart, that's really good filmmaking, that's a good use of a small character. I thought that was great. Like, that was terrific stuff. And I just felt like, there are moments where we get a lot of that, and there's moments where we don't get any of that. And obviously there's some other characters. There's the one thing I'll say, there's tons of characters. There's lots of stuff going on in this film. We haven't even talked about Jay and Silent Bob yet. Kevin Smith obviously plays Silent Bob. Jason Mewes is Jay. It's a big cast. It's a big cast. A lot going on. But as you said, Lauren, it's really the Jason Lee, Jeremy London show for the majority of this thing.
I think that, for me, I watch a lot of the show Chopped on the Food Network, right? So it's one of my favorite shows to watch. And this reminds me a bit of some of the things that I've seen on that show, where you have a really good mind in the kitchen who knows what they need to put together, who sees the ingredients and says, this is how they work, and has some really good ideas and flashes. But at the end of the day, there's only 20 minutes on the clock, and you can only do so much. And it feels like maybe Kevin Smith had the right idea for a lot of this stuff, bit off more than he could chew. There's just too much going on for any of this to be developed in a way that I think is cohesive and works together. Where there's bits like the Ethan Suplee vignettes that work really, really well, but there are other parts like the characters that just don't seem to work at all. Where maybe if he had some more time or more screen time for those characters, there would have been more development, and it would have made a little bit more sense.
Well, and I also think that maybe if the best part of the movie is the vignettes or the side stories or Jay and Silent Bob, maybe lean into that. Maybe the movie is a series of vignettes, because what I don't like about the movie is the fact that we are focused on Jeremy London and Jason Lee, who are two very unlikable, kind of underdeveloped characters, and I don't want to follow their storyline the whole time.
I agree, and I think that the mall culture would be a little bit better encapsulated in that in those vignettes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like that there's so much going on where there's so many separate things going on in a mall. That would make sense. Like if the relationship between the manager and this guy's girlfriend is a vignette, that makes sense. And then you have the guy staring at the sailboat. It's a vignette that makes sense. Jay and Silent Bob are their own thing, and Stan Lee's this whole other thing. Like there's a million things going on in a mall, and none of them have to be connected for them to work or be funny.
Yeah, I agree.
So before we go to the favorite scenes area, let me run you through the 60-second plot, the plot outline for you, just so that for those of you who haven't seen Mallrats, which, by the way, if you're listening to a podcast breaking down Mallrats and you haven't seen Mallrats, I don't know what to tell you. But here it is. So here's the plot. Brody is Jason Lee's character. He's broken up with by Shannon Doherty in the opening scene because all he wants to do is sleep in, play Sega, and read comic books. Quint is preparing to propose to his lovely young fiancée in Universal Studios in Orlando on the Jaws ride. Get it? Quint, Brody on the Jaws ride. Kind of interesting. Nice little connection there if you're curious. But she ends up breaking up with him and needs to go on her father's game show because the original contestant died because of something Quint said. Go figure. So she's got to take over for that and be on this dating game show in the middle of a mall, which, by the way, a game show in the middle of the mall. Yep, you get it. It's what's going on. They go to the mall to try to get over their significant others, And while they do that, they encounter a whole cast of characters, including Shannon at Fashionable Mail, who ends up dating Shannon Doherty within 3 hours of Shannon Doherty breaking up with Jason Lee. And hilarity ensues. There are some nice moments. Stan Lee is doing a comic book signing inside the mall, so he's there. You have the guy looking at the sailboat. You have the game show. You have Jay and Silent Bob, who are basically just guys who sit at the mall and do nothing. You have a crazy security guard named LaFours. There's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on. And I understand the need to have like a through line plot. I just don't like that it was this one.
All right. As we do, we go through our categories here. Anything else you want to add before we go to the categories? Things that stick out to you that you're like, oh man, this is bothering me. I have to say this.
No, I think I'll get to it.
All right, favorite scenes. I don't know how many of them you got. I got a couple of them. I kind of like the opening scene with Shannon Doherty and Jason Lee because I think you get some good character stuff right at the beginning. I love the fact that he the first thing he does when he wakes up, it's I don't know how late it is in the morning, but the first thing he does is turn on his Sega game that he's already had on pause overnight while he's sleeping because he's been, which you couldn't, because it reminds me of my youth, I guess, because we didn't have memory cards and games didn't save. So if you wanted to keep a game going, you oftentimes had to sit it on pause overnight while you slept and pick it up the next morning. It's ridiculous, I know. But that's the life we lived back in the day. So I kind of like that scene, but I also think they have a great dialogue, and you get this, like, interesting connection. The fact that she has to go out the window in the morning versus go up the door, I think, is an interesting signal that there's, like, this tumult within, like, the mom and him, and there's tumult between these two, and it was an interesting start. I actually don't mind that scene at all.
I like that scene, and I like it because you can tell that Shannon Doherty is immediately, whether or not she's a good person is irrelevant. She's clearly thought about this, and she has given him a shot, a good old college try, and she spent all last night with his game pause thinking about exactly what she was going to say, and as she's talking, and she's like, she's getting dressed and she's talking to him and she's saying exactly what she wants to say. And then she just breaks up with him and goes out the window. And it's like, that's probably the best acted scene in the movie.
Really is. Like, she's quite good in that scene where she talks about how she cries, right? And she's like, I think about all this stuff and I cry because I have nothing better to do than, than screw you, basically, is basically what she's like. That's all I do. Like, I'm not, and I think I'm like, that's very interesting. I just thought that was good. It's good writing. It's good dialogue. It's a good start to the film. And it actually is like, okay, we're off and running here a little bit. I like that scene. Favorite scene for you? First one. Even in a film you don't like, you got to have a favorite scene, right? Come on.
So I do like the scene where they are talking about him proposing. And he says he's going to propose on the Jaws ride.
Yep.
And they go, when Jaws pops out of the water. I don't know why, but that cracked me up.
It's a great line where Brody says right there, he's like, God, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Oh my God. That cracked me up. Jay and Silent Bob's entire B storyline, I could have just watched a whole movie about that.
I had that down too as my second favorite. Anything with Jay and Silent Bob and the LaFours storyline of destroying the set is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard to pick one scene. I like storylines that are happening. I like the side bits.
I was a big fan of the Stan Lee bit. I thought that was pretty funny.
Where they were going to fight Stan Lee outside the comic, or not fight Stan Lee, but he gets into a fight with nerds outside the store because he had no idea Stan Lee was there, and he's like, "How did I miss this?" Yeah, that's a great scene. That's another good one. I love in the Jay and Silent Bob scenes the blueprints that they have, all right, Nuge. The first thing you got to do is knock out LaFours with the sock full of quarters. And then he's like, I would do it, but I hurt myself on your mom last night. And then it's just this great dialogue. Oh my God. I love, Jason Mewes is really funny to me. And the Jay character has always made me laugh. So, and he is the same in Clerks. That's the beautiful thing is like those two characters, it's not like they were even heightened versions of themselves in Clerks. They're the exact same. And that's what's great about it.
That's every time I've seen Jay and Silent Bob in a movie, I get excited because they are just like that in everything, even in Dogma, which just feels like so out of place for them to be there. But they clearly have a very good chemistry, and that's why they're just so enjoyable to watch. And all of their stuff in this movie cracks me up. I love it.
Yeah, they're very funny in that. I'm with you too. I do like that outside the comic book scene. I think that's a good one. I'm trying to think of... I have the elevator scene, but it's a little controversial to me as one of my favorite scenes, just because it feels probably not something that would work in today's world. Probably not something that should have worked in 1995. But it did. It's an interesting scene, the elevator scene, where he basically just jumps in front of Ben Affleck's character, and they have sex in the elevator.
Yeah.
When I say they, I mean Brody and Shannon Doherty's character.
Shannon Doherty.
Yep.
But this is the 2 times in the movie where they get back together with these women that they're there to like forget. Why? Why? I mean, why did they want to get back together with these women? They clearly had like seemingly no relationship with them. And then why are these women? Shannon Doherty of all people, she made this big speech that morning.
Yeah.
And now they're having sex in the elevator. What? I don't know. It does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's an interesting one. There is some, and other favorite scenes, there's some good dialogue between, I think when they talk about what defines a eatery or what defines the food court in a mall, I thought was of interest. It's a good dialogue. I don't mind that. I thought that was pretty funny. Anything with Michael Rooker, I find now, even at the time when I first watched it, I don't know if I appreciated it, but as I watch it now, I'm like, he's clearly the professional in this film. Like, he's just really good at every scene he's in. Like, it's over the top, but yet it's not at the same time. So I sort of like that. Especially the way he plays off the chocolate covered pretzel scene and all of there's a lot going on there. But Michael Rooker is great in pretty much every scene he's in.
He is, including the pretzel scene, which I'm gonna be real honest.
It's gross.
I could do without.
I could do without it too. It's gross.
I could do without it.
It makes, and as a person who likes the occasional chocolate covered pretzel, it's tough. It's a tough scene. It's hard to go to the cupboard where I have my Costco chocolate covered dark chocolate pretzels, which are very delicious, by the way. Very hard to eat those after watching that scene. Had to take a break from it.
I was watching it with Ryan, being like, I clearly had missed something. I had like looked down and looked back up, and I was like, why are we zooming in on Michael Rooker eating this? And then Ryan kind of explained what had just happened, and I'm like, oh my God. Oh no.
The old stink palm.
Oh my God, gross. I could do without that.
Again, written by men.
It is. And this is not a complaint that I usually have when I watch Kevin Smith movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just, man, I can just feel it so hard. Oh.
Any other favorite scenes?
No.
Oh my God, I love it when you hate movies. I've decided as much as I love it when you love movies, I love it almost more when you hate it. It makes for just very fun radio when you hate a movie. It's good. All right, least favorite. I'm sure you have plenty. I'll let you fire away.
The pretzel scene was on my list, for sure. The fortune teller scene of the woman with the
Thank you.
Boob.
Easily my least favorite scene in the film.
Totally useless, doesn't do anything, and it's just a way to see a woman's topless. And it serves no purpose. But this is... Okay, so I didn't write down a specific scene because there's just like a whole general vibe about this movie that I do not like. And I have a real issue with stories in general where I just hate the main character. And sometimes you're supposed to, right? Sometimes you watch a movie and the protagonist is like a shitty person, and that's like the world you're living in, you know? But this isn't Uncut Gems, okay? I just cannot stand the main characters. They are both such shitty people and so obnoxious, and yet they grow not at all throughout the course of the movie, and yet they somehow end up getting what they want at the end of it. And it's just, man, I just fucking hate it. And like we had said earlier, if this was like one little side story in a sea of side stories, I don't think it would bother me as much. But we're supposed to like identify with them or something? Dude, I do not identify with these people. You're making me identify with Shannon Doherty. Shannon Doherty. Are you notable bitch at this time, especially?
Yes.
In both professionally and like in her roles. I think I am supposed to feel that. I think the idea is that they hired her because I'm supposed to feel that way about her. Like she's also a shitty person. I don't. I don't.
I don't think she is shitty. I don't think her requests are out of the ordinary. I mean, I think you come away with it going, yeah, I can see why Shannon Doherty's a bitch, because like that's the reputation she has. Her reputation precedes her in this film. But her character, if you look at it just kind of sight unseen and you didn't know anything else about her and it was just like in a vacuum you watch this film, you'd be like, I sort of get Shannon Doherty. Like, I sort of understand her, I guess. I sort of understand her frustration. The only thing I don't understand is why she decides to bang the guy she just broke up with in the elevator, and why she decides to take back the guy who says terrible things on a game show.
Yes. And like,
don't get me wrong. Like, break up with Ben Affleck. Great idea.
Oh, totally.
Totally. I'm on board with that. But it's like, God, those are my options. It's Jason Lee or Ben Affleck. Those are my choices. Well, I'll take the evil of two lessers.
It's like, just be single, girl. Stop. You have horrible taste in men.
Just take a break. Yep. Go get a job at Starbucks and just hang out for a while. You know, read a book.
Yeah. Go be you know what? Go be friends with Claire Forlani and get out of here. Both of you.
Get out. Go on a road trip somewhere. Go up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Have a great time. Enjoy yourself. The three nipple psychic is absolutely bananas to me. I think it's a scene that was like, oh well, we got to throw something in, and it's not good. It's one of my it's like I have to that's usually my bathroom break. When that one comes out, because I'm like, it adds nothing. It's my least favorite scene in the film. They could get across exactly what they need to get across in that scene without her taking her top off. 100%.
It's so gratuitous. It's just dumb.
Game show. Weird. The game show is one of my least favorite scenes.
That's my least favorite scene.
Yeah. I don't understand. Okay, so we're doing a game show, not in a studio, but in the middle of a goddamn mall.
Yeah.
Is this a Tiffany concert? Like, I've never understood why we did this. And
well,
you have to explain this to me a little bit. The game show just feels like a means to an end, but I'm like, there's got to be another way to do this.
Well, and I assumed when they were talking about it being a game show in a mall that it would be like, oh, well, there's like an audience there, and you're doing like it in front of like a live audience at the mall or something. You know, I don't know. Sometimes they have weird things at like the Mall of America.
Not on TV. Yeah, it's not on TV per se, but it's kind of a thing that they do as a promotional thing at the mall. I would get that, but this is like an actual thing, like a thing that's on TV.
It's like in the food court, no one's around. Willem's still looking at the boat or whatever.
Yeah,
like. I don't really get it. It feels like a mishmash of ideas. Like, yeah, we'll just put this game show in the mall. That's totally why. There couldn't be any other way that we couldn't give Quint some character development that maybe he could just on his own find Claire Forlani in a mall and confess his love for her. We have to do this like weird game show thing. But then also without the game show, Jay and Silent Bob have nothing to do.
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess I said it seems like it's a means to an end. I just don't, it never reads like as like a real thing. It feels like, first of all, it's another bit that's 5 minutes too long.
Totally.
It's just, it goes forever in a day. And I just think I don't know what else you could do, but I just feel like we were out of ideas. Let's just do that one. That's what it feels like. And you watch it back now and you're like, it really doesn't fit now.
No, it doesn't.
Ryan?
I'm just, like I said, the game show bit is my least favorite. I really didn't have a whole lot of scenes that blew me away or really, disgusted me or that I really just didn't like. But the game show was way too long. I didn't care for it.
So we agree on that. So I'm glad that we came to a consensus on the three nipple psychic and the game show as being our least favorite scenes in the movie. Anything else stand out to you as your least favorite?
Those are my big things. Honestly, I don't like the central plot of the movie.
Let's go to the ingenue, up or down. We have to assume the ingenue here is Shannon Doherty. Or
Claire Forlani.
Or Claire Forlani. I'll let you go with wherever you want. Yeah, I think let's look at both of them then. Up or down?
Shannon Doherty up, I think.
Interesting.
I don't think Shannon Doherty's a bad actress. I think she's a very good actress. And I think she is doing the most in this movie, trying to get the audience to both think that she's being a little harsh, but also she has very valid reasons to believe what she believes. She stops Jason Lee in the middle of the movie and is like, I can't remember the exact line, but he did something really cringy at her grandmother's funeral. He's just a notorious man baby. And I think that she gets that across really well. She's using all of her skills as TV's best bitch or whatever to actually be kind of likable.
I think the problem with Shannon Doherty is she is Brenda from 90210 in this film. She is the chick from Charmed that nobody liked on that show either. I feel like she's I like her. I don't hate her in this film. I have to give her a down because it doesn't work. It doesn't work with, I don't think she works with Jason Lee. And that's kind of part of this when you're the ingenue in the film and you're supposed to be the romantic love interest is there has to be romantic something.
Chemistry.
There has to, and I don't see it. And part of it is and I do think, and it's unfortunate to Shannon Doherty. It's unfortunate, but her baggage comes with her. It's kind of like the Katherine Heigl thing, isn't it? Where after you've watched Katherine Heigl in films or Grey's Anatomy or whatever, you can't unsee the bitch that's Katherine Heigl. You know what I mean? You can't do it. You can't do it. I watch Knocked Up now and I'm like, oh, that's the movie she shit on, even though it made her a shitload of money. She's a bitch. And I feel like that does this to Shannon Doherty too. It's unfair, but it's kind of part of the deal.
I think there's something to watching this now, though, as opposed to watching it at the time. Because at the time, that is so obviously why they cast her, was to bring that energy with her. And I think I view it differently now than I maybe would have a longer time ago. Because I'm not going to say I would watch this in 1995. I was 4.
That makes me really upset that I was 14 and you were 4.
But I think that, because I watched Charmed, and I felt like she was definitely a strong character in that, but she wasn't a jerk. And I think she's a decent actress. I think you're right, though. She has no chemistry with Jason Lee. But that was clearly not a focus She has no chemistry with Ben Affleck. That is not a focus. I just feel like the female characters in this movie that we're supposed to be focusing on, there's not enough to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%.
I think with the very little Shannon Doherty was given, I think she did a very good job.
So I would go down on Doherty. I would go down on Claire Forlani as well. And I like Claire Forlani. It's just there's just not a lot of there, right?
Yeah,
it's just,
I agree.
There's just not much for me to grab onto. As a general rule, I like Claire Forlani. I just don't see it in this film. It just doesn't work. So I got to go down. I'm going to say down on both.
I'm going to say down on Claire Forlani.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for her, but there's nothing for her. She has like 10 lines.
Yeah. You can only do so much.
Yes, exactly. No. At the end of the day, I mean, you might be the greatest race car driver in the history of the world, but you're driving a two-door hatchback. You're driving a Pinto.
Look,
Jeff Gordon
I just
can't
want to
make that work.
First of all, if you ever say Jeff Gordon's the best racer in the history of racing again, I'll find you.
I never said that, by the way. I would say Ayrton Senna, but you wouldn't know who the hell that is.
It's the answer is clearly Dale Earnhart.
The answer is Ayrton Senna, but that's okay. Continue.
It's raise hail and praise Dale.
Christ.
He would win in a Ford Pinto.
Are you sure he's not from Alabama, Ryan? Are you sure? Or Lauren, are you sure he's not from Alabama? Like he talks about I'm from the Midwest and I'm this, that, and the other thing. No,
well, he's not from the Midwest. He's from Indiana, which is a very specific part of the Midwest.
Can we call that's almost
the racing capital of the world?
Yeah, not for guys like Dale Earnhardt, by the way, in Indianapolis. That's for Mario Andretti. Why didn't you say Mario Andretti?
Because Dale Earnhardt is a better racer than Mario Andretti.
You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. And as a guy who likes Dale Earnhardt, you're a disgrace. You're leaving out the F1 drivers and all the IndyCar drivers.
Richard Petty is also up there. He's probably number one, number two, flip a coin. Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty.
What a disgrace. Anyway, I don't know what more to say. It's fine. I agree with you. It's fine. I'll give it to you. Maybe read up on Ayrton Senna one time. Anyway, so we ingenue up and down. Swing for the fences. There's really only one guy. It's really one of the three best scenes in the film.
Oh, I put Willem. What did you put?
I had Stan Lee.
Oh, Stanley. Stanley's like on my list.
Stanley has he's got one scene. He knocks it out, actually. He's pretty good. And
he's very good.
Jason Lee and him have this great conversation at the top of the escalator, and they're just looking at people, and he's having a great conversation. And Stan Lee shows you some, there's a moment of oh, that's nice. That's a nice moment right there. And he's on for 2 minutes, and he makes an impact. Stan Lee's great. It was a great payoff for Stan Lee. He's my swing for the fences guy, but I like Ethan Suplee as well. Willem, I like that.
Stanley, we can get into our list right now because Stanley's my number 5.
Interesting that he makes your number 5.
I thought he was really good, and I feel like you can tell watching this that it makes perfect sense why they would start putting him in Marvel movies. Starting, by the way, not that long after this in X-Men.
That's true. Yeah.
So and all of his cameos in the MCU have been really adorable. And he has I think we tend to think of him now, or, RIP, in the last couple of years, I should say. But as this kind of adorable old man, but he's actually an okay actor for the little bits that they give him and stuff. And he has this whole big long monologue in this, and a little joke to top it off at the end. And he's very good. I was surprised.
He executes. He comes in and he executes, and you buy it and you're okay with it. It's oh, very likable. What a great moment. I enjoyed it. That's why he's my swing for the fences guy, because he's in for one scene and he kills it. Willem is my 5 because Willem is in a handful of scenes, and I think he's more of a factor in this film than Stan Lee is. But Stan Lee comes in for one shot, makes it work, leaves. That's a guy that he's the pinch hitter, comes in the 8th, gets a double, gets pulled for a runner, does his job, he's out of the game. Love it.
Good point.
I think I think my swing for the fences is Jared Svenning, Michael Rooker. I don't think he's in
only in a few scenes. You're fair. I mean, that qualifies, but it's a little dicey, but I'll give it to you.
I just put him a little on that other side of that line. I think he's on the line of being, in the movie too much to be swing for the fences, but he's in there just little enough for me to say I think he's my swing for the fences.
Is it possible that his ass could be the swing for the fences character? Like, because his ass is in there for shorter.
It's true. That's true. I think my 5, if we're moving into the list, is probably Ethan Suplee.
Yep. I have Willem as 5.
It's just so fun. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's great in this film. He's great, and everybody knows. I have 2 friends that remind me of him every time I watch this movie. I'm like, that's that guy. It's totally that guy. I love it. I love it. He's a great character.
Everybody has one with a friend like that.
Who's your 5? You said your 5 was Stan Lee, Lauren?
Mine is, yeah.
Who's your 4? I'll let you go there.
I chose Michael Rooker as 4. I feel like he's a little bit more of a fixture of the movie. It's hard. I feel like so many of these people could be swing for the fences because everyone's part is so small, chopped up into bits. I think Michael Rooker. I think basically what we talked about earlier. He's a professional, and you can tell.
100%.
Not everybody in this movie is. In fact, most people aren't. And he has a career behind him, and it shows. He very much knows the movie he's in. He very much understands the character he's playing. He's just good.
Yeah, Rooker would have been 6 for me just because there's not enough there. He's just in a weird spot. I don't know if I love he's not swing for the fences because to me he's in it too much, but he's also not in it enough to move the needle in any meaningful way in the film. I wish they would have given him more to do, or something. Yeah. But he's a great actor. I really love Michael Rooker. He's not bad in anything. He's not on my top 5, but maybe I could revisit it and say that he would be. But that's not bad. Where's your 4, Ryan?
My 4, I'm going to give to Jeremy London, T.S. Quint. The kind of thing where, if we're talking about this on actual speech scores, the kind of person who has a really good piece but just doesn't execute. Felt like he got a lot of opportunities, but really just didn't do anything with it.
He's one of those guys where there's times in a big final of speech, I wish I could give an unranked. Yeah. There are times where I'm like, that guy made the final because he had a soft prelim. He got, the luck of the draw really worked him, and he went 2-2-1 in the prelim, and everybody's like, oh, he's really good, and it's and he gets in the final, and there's just... He's up against the big hitters of the tournament, and you're just like, yeah, that guy is... He is
just nothing there.
He's in the junior varsity, boys. He is not in the top... He's not in the top 5. He is 6 or 7.
100%.
100%. He's not even on my list.
You know what I feel about him? He has this vibe where it's have you ever watched a movie in your health class about relationships? Or something. That's the kind of vibe he's giving.
The after-school special.
Yes.
Your hormones in you.
Some kind of health class.
He's the really terrible bit part on Saved by the Bell.
Yes.
He's the boyfriend in the very special episode of Blossom. The one that you think is a good guy, but he's probably not. He wants to press. He's pressing Blossom too early to make out, and she's like, "No, I'm not feeling it." Come on, man, I'm wearing a blazer. Anyway, go ahead.
That's the vibe he's giving to me, and it's not great. It's not a great one.
All right, so was that your 4?
Not the Blossom reference.
I threw the Blossom. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And by the way, people who are giving a shit about the Jeopardy thing, let me just come. I got to say this real quick as a quick aside, now that we've talked about Blossom. If you've got time to give half a shit about who hosts frickin' Jeopardy, you got too much going on. I have officially decided social media has jumped the shark. Too many people care about shit that does not matter.
Really?
That
now you've
not
decided that?
matter. No, but this is the line. This is the line of what doesn't matter. Who gives half a fuck about who hosts Jeopardy. I don't give a rat's ass if it's Senior Wences and he comes out and it's just a hand puppet with a freaking face on it giving the answers. I don't care who hosts it. I don't care if it's Jeff Dunham and a dummy. Like, who gives a shit who hosts Jeopardy?
Well, I do give a shit when there are like plenty of guest hosts that they hire that are perfectly popular. And then they're just like, you know what we're going to do? Hire our executive producer to do it.
Hey, whatever. And you're right. Do I love that guy? Nah, I don't love that guy. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Couldn't care less. If LeVar Burton would have got it, you know what I would have said? Great. If he didn't get it, you know what I said? Tough scene. That's the way it works. You had Reading Rainbow, and I love that. I
got to say, it's interesting to me that this is where you draw the line on caring about stuff. There's a whole
for Mallrats for an hour and 16 minutes, and I'm talking about how I don't give a shit about things. Yes, go ahead.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I mean, we're really fine parsing the line of things to give a shit about as we do a movie podcast about an almost 30-year-old movie.
Yeah, but I'm not tweeting about this incessantly. I'm not raising a ruckus over it. I'm not saying Kevin Smith should be stoned because he made this film. Like, I'm not like that. I want to talk about it because it's a movie, it's fun, it's goofy. But I'm not saying it's the worst thing to happen to America to hire Mike Richards as the host of Jeopardy, and Mayim Bialik hates vaccines, so we should never let her host Jeopardy. Like, how do we marry those two things?
Mayim Bialik hates vaccines. I have not been on Twitter.
I don't know if she does not. I don't know. She's an astrophysicist. Like, she's like a scientist.
Yeah, she's not an astrophysicist
or something. She's like something brainy, isn't she? She's pretty smart.
She's like a brain scientist.
But they're all over Mayim Bialik hosting it too. I'm like, who cares who hosts it?
A brain scientist is what a pothead tells somebody that they do at a party. What do you do for work? I'm a brain scientist.
I'm a brain scientist.
I majored in the arts. I don't have to know that kind of stuff.
Are those pizza rolls done? Because I could really go for some pizza rolls.
As a brain scientist, I need some brain food.
And what is the word?
And what time does Jeopardy come on? Because I really want to watch that. That's gonna be great. That chick from Blossom's on it. Anyway,
I could totally win Jeopardy.
I totally would win Jeopardy if they just put me on it. That'd be so good. Anyway, all right. So let's recap. Your number 4 was T.S. Ryan, was that you?
Yeah.
And Lauren, you had
Michael
Rooker. All right. I'm taking Shannon Doherty at 4. I don't know why. I just am. Like, it's just, that's where you, as a speech judge, you're watching the round, you go, that's just where she is. That's just for no reason. She's not better than the top 3. She's not the worst. She's not the best. And that's just where she is. She's 4th. So I got to give her a 4. But at least she's in the top 5 because there are many that are unlisted.
Yeah.
Number 3.
I have Jason Lee here.
Interesting.
Only for a couple of the top 3 are not necessarily about ability for me. They are about who I do and do not like. Because this movie is just, God, it's all over the place for me. So Jason Lee is clearly a good actor. He's doing his best. He's doing his signature Jason Lee thing, which is getting like very upset over the dumbest shit and focusing on the weirdest stuff, this kind of like personality he has in this movie. I feel like he has it in like 8 other movies after this.
I'm with you.
Oddly enough, no mentions of Scientology.
Is he a Scientologist?
Yeah, he's weird, isn't he?
I don't know if he's weird. Yeah, My Name is Earl is not my favorite show. Everybody loves it. It's not my favorite, but
I like My Name is Earl.
Well, there you go.
Ethan Suplee's also in that.
I know he is. I didn't know he was a Scientologist, though. Is that true? Interesting.
Yeah. No, he's a Scientologist.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, so is Travolta, and I like him. I didn't hold that against him in Face Off.
That makes perfect sense, because didn't he also name his child Fighter Pilot?
Something like that. Yeah, it's not good. Jet, I think is what it was. Jet. Isn't it? And he passed on.
No, it's like No.
Oh, Jason Lee. Well, Jason Lee you're talking about. Yeah.
I was like, no, it's not a normal name. It's fighter pilot.
Oh, Jesus. I'm starting to hate Jason Lee a little more now as you talk about him. Don't talk about him anymore because you're going to make me not like him.
Yeah, he's my 3 because I think he's doing.
Pilot Inspector is this kid's name.
Oh my God,
Inspector! I want to punch Jason Lee in the face now. Like, and his kids should kick him in the nuts with a running start. Like when they get to like a certain age, they should be like, "Dad, I'm gonna go to the end of the hall. I'm gonna run at you as hard as I can, and I'm gonna kick you right in the nuts for naming me this stupid name." Thank you.
I think that would be very well deserved.
It's too bad.
No, I don't like his character, but I think that he's doing the most he can do. I don't know. I feel lukewarm about it. So he's 3.
3 for you, Ryan.
My 3. 1 second here. I would say my 3 is probably Silent Bob.
That's interesting that you separated the two. I couldn't separate the two. They're kind of a couple.
I think they are a couple, but I think that the speaking lines for Jay set him apart for me. But Silent Bob gets my 3.
Silent Bob, of course, famous for, I'll say this. Kevin Smith has written himself, like with Clerks, he has a great line in Clerks, and he has a great line at the end of this film. He writes him, he's like, I'm going to make it work. I'm not going to talk for the whole film, but I'm going to have one great line at the end, and it's going to work well. It's good stuff. So Silent Bob's 3 for you. I'm going to take Ben Affleck at 3, mainly because, like, in a speech final, I'm sometimes judging a little on potential. There's a little bit, like, Ben Affleck's a dick in Dazed and Confused, but I like him. He's a dick in this film, and it kind of works. Like, he pulls it off. He's like, be a dick, Ben Affleck. No problem, I can do that. And he's great, and he's good at it. He's a very good dick. He's a very good asshole in this film, and I enjoy... it works. And you could kind of see, like... And now that you're 25 years removed from that, and you see what Ben Affleck's accomplished, and now he's dating Jennifer Lopez for the second time. Interesting. You start to be like, it's kind of... You should have seen that coming 25 years ago. Should have seen it coming.
It's kind of bonkers, though, because I see... Like, I know now, the benefit of hindsight. I know what he's capable of now. And... it's very easy to make fun of Ben Affleck. He has not made some stellar choices. That being said, he is a very talented guy.
Good director, actually. Surprisingly, really good. Has good eye. Like he has and we should see that with Good Will Hunting. Him and Damon as writers, like they're good at like setting scenes, and the town is terrific. It's a great film, and like Affleck knows what he's doing. Like he's good. He's good at it.
And he's a good actor, I trust his acting abilities. He comes in this movie, he gets paid. He's clearly shooting for like one day because he's barely in it, and comes in his oversized fashionable male suit. It is
interesting too that you meant. I'm glad you brought this up because for a guy who runs a store called Fashionable Male, he's like the least fashionable guy I've ever seen in my life. Like nobody in the '90s would wear an outfit like that. He looks stupid.
This is why this movie looks like it was made for $5. I'm thoroughly confused. Why a Fashionable Male is what? It's supposed to be like a knockoff Men's Warehouse type of situation.
You would think so.
He looks awful. But maybe, you know what? I wonder.
That might be part of the joke.
I wonder if I was just going to say, I wonder if that's part of the joke, that he works a Fashionable Male and he thinks he's like this big success or something. And he looks like a complete moron.
He looks disheveled, half the time. Like an unmade bed.
That's kind of the joke with those guys who work at the suit stores, though, especially at the mall, where they're just kind of the burnouts who have to wear the suit, but those stores never sell tailored suits. They're always just off the rack.
Yeah, dude, I think that suit would look good on you.
Right. They never fit right.
Yeah.
They're always boxy and huge in the shoulders, huge in the waist for no reason.
Well, it's like Ben Affleck's already like a very big and tall type of a person, and he looks like a very intimidating box crate.
Back in my tubby days, going in to get like a shirt, like a dress shirt or, a pair of dress pants was the worst thing in the history of the world to me. Like there was nothing that scared me more because they'd be like, yeah, dude, you look great. I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? I don't look great in anything. You
don't have to. You're preaching to the choir here a little bit. Look, I I am not. I carry my weight well. Many people have said.
You wear it well.
I'm a very big dude. But here's the thing. I don't have a neck.
No neck. None whatsoever.
And I have a 21.5-inch neck.
Yep.
Do you have any idea how hard it is to find a dress shirt to fit a 21.5-inch neck that is 1.5 inches off my shoulders?
And it looks like the tie is choking you when you wear a tie. I have to admit.
Right.
Like, it looks like a noose.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
Right? There's no good way to wear it when you don't have a neck. Like, I look like a crash test dummy with a head that got glued back on.
And the thing is... Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's no good way to do that, and buying suits off the rack is just impossible.
No, it's impossible. And then you have guys like Ben Affleck's character who basically are like, you get this, you shoehorn yourself into a dress shirt when you're tubby, and you're just like, they're like, yeah, dude, you look like $1 million. It's awesome. Like you're gonna wow them. You're gonna really wow people with that. It's like, man, you look like a sausage. You kidding me? I'm not gonna impress anyone with this. Like, I look at my wedding photos, and like I got my dress shirt custom and all this stuff, and they're like, dude, you look fantastic. And I'm like, I look at my wedding photos, and I'm like, Jesus, look at this guy. Ugh. How did he get into that shirt? Who said I looked good? I want to fire somebody. That's kind of how I feel.
You haven't hired anybody, but we're gonna fire.
I didn't hire anybody, but I want everybody fired. I'm going down, and I'm gonna demand resignations. All right, number two, Lauren.
Oh my God. Okay, we went on such a long tangent that my phone shut off. Number 2, I put Shannon Doherty.
Oh.
I think that she is, like I said earlier, she's doing the most with very, very little. Her character has no development, as does no one else's. So I can't really hold that against her. But she is the character in the movie that I like the most. Mostly because, like... I am a lifelong nerd. I think most people who know me would know that. But I would get equally annoyed. I view her in this way where I don't know, they live in the same town or something. And so they just kind of ended up together. And she put up with his bullshit for a very long time before she just sat down one night and decided, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I like her for the rest of the movie because of it. There are a couple of scenes that don't make sense to me, but that's not Shannon Doherty's fault or her problem. I think she's good.
This is the first time, Ryan, if you're keeping track of the rankings, that we're really going to have some squirrely stuff. That we're going to have some This is going to be a very interesting final ranking when it's done.
As bad as Tremors.
Tremors was Well, Ryan was just being ridiculous in Tremors. He was just all over the place.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
You were just carrying a torch for Reba McEntire and Burt Gummer, and it's a disgrace. I mean, there's nothing more we can say about it. Anyway, number 2 for you, Ryan.
Number 2 for me is Jason Lee. I think that he's far and away, the best of the main characters, the main cast. But even then, it's not enough to get the job done. Doesn't get the one. Just unlikable enough not to win it outright in my mind.
Can we make an executive decision that if, say, they end up on 2 people's ballots but not the third, that we have to call that a 6? Is that fair? To just be a sinking ranking at that point? Is there a way to do that? I think there is, right? As we keep track of who wins around. Number 2 for me is Jay and Silent Bob. Jason Mewes, Kevin Smith. I think they are funny in every scene they're in. It works in every scene they're in. They have a lot of great pop culture, like the Batman stuff where they do where do you get these wonderful toys? That was a great line. All the stuff with LaFours, and LaFours is actually a really good character for a guy who says nothing. It's pretty fun actually, and there's a lot of great one-liners from Jay and Silent Bob. It's well executed. I think those 2 are great, and they're great in Clerks. They're great here. They're great in Dogma. This is I think that they're the 2. They're the 2 here for me. All right. Number 1, Lauren. Who gets your 1?
Jay and Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob get your 1. Fantastic.
They get my 1. They're incredible in this movie. All of their bits are my favorite bits. It's probably the only time throughout the movie that I legitimately guffawed. And they're just, like I said before, I could watch a whole movie. This whole movie could just be about Jay and Silent Bob. and I would like it so much more. They're great. They're great in everything, but I think that they kind of, in my opinion, carry this movie.
Ryan, who's your one?
One for me is Sven-Ole Thorsen. I'm just kidding. No, the one for me is Jason Mewes. Jay, he's just really funny. I thought that obviously I separated them.
Yeah, you did.
But I thought that those two were the funniest part of the movie. They were clearly the standouts. They were better than almost everything else on screen.
My one is Jason Lee. I'm going to give it to him. And the only reason here is because I thought for a first time out, he had the most energy. I felt like he was the most dialed into the film as far as like what he was trying to do. You could tell he took it seriously because it was like a breakthrough opportunity for him. He saw a chance to really put himself out there, and I thought he took advantage of it. I think he parlayed this into a very nice career. I think he has a lot of great lines. There's a lot of great moments. I agree he's not the most likable character in the world. I don't know if he wants to be, and I think that's okay. It just sort of works. What hurts him is the fact that TS is bad. I think if TS was his equal, I think this film would be elevated to a completely different place, and we'd be talking about this in a different way. I think Jason Lee is making lemonade out of some of the lemons, and I give him the one. And again, most critics tended to kind of fly that way too. That's just where I'm at. Yeah, I agree with your points are extremely valid on him, Lauren. There's a lot of stuff that actually you're making me think about for the first time, which is great. But I'll stand by my one.
I think I understand that. And I think the more that I think about it, I feel like Quint being so just not a very good character and not done very well is part of what drags this down. Jason Lee, you're right. Jason Lee is not likable, and he's not trying to be. It's very obvious what he's trying to do. And it's not nearly as obvious what Jeremy London is trying to do. And I think if he had been this kind of like the character that all the other characters say he is, but he really isn't, which is, this unrelentingly good guy. He kind of got screwed over. He got thrown for a loop. And now he's not with this girl he had planned to marry. And his life is in shambles. But ultimately, he's this fantastic, unbelievable, otherworldly man. But he's none of those things. And so, I think there's supposed to be a contrast between Jeremy London and Jason Lee. And there isn't enough of one for that to be compelling. So Jason Lee and Shannon Doherty having this kind of shallow relationship, making stupid decisions like having sex in the elevator while Ben Affleck is outside. That might all be just a funny side bit if Claire Forlani and Jeremy London were strong central characters, but neither of them are.
Yeah. So there's our rankings. I go Ryan, I'm sure, is going to tally us up a winner.
I've actually got it. The winner is Jason Mewes.
If you count the Jay and Silent Bob rankings.
Yep, those we'll say that they're separate. But even if you say that they're together, then Silent Bob would be number 2, with the 3 on there. So they go 1, 2. After that is Brody. Jason Lee gets the 3. The 4 goes to Michael Rooker, and the 5 goes to Ethan Suplee. So
there we go. Look at that. Fantastic. We were able to knock out another film. It took us 93 minutes to get into that. We had a few tangents, too.
I do have one last thing to get to.
Please do.
You're ready for it.
Yes, take it.
The Tom Kane fact of the week.
Oh, God, how could we forget?
Took a little while to get there. But just so we're all there, LaForce. Interesting guy. I don't know if you know that or not. Sven-Ole Thorsen. I alluded to him earlier as the joke number 1. He 1983 Denmark's strongest man, bodybuilder, powerlifter, but also played the role of Tigress of Gaul in the movie Gladiator. You don't know who that is? That's the sort of faceless, behind the mask giant that Maximus fights in the gladiatorial arena after he is enslaved and he takes the mask off for the first time. So he's that's the same guy. That's LaForce.
Look at that. Now that's interesting stuff. Once again, that's the Tom Kane Fact of the Week, brought to you by Tom Kane.
Nobody.
No, nobody.
My dad.
Yeah, but
maybe you.
Maybe you. And maybe it's the no free ads, but I got to tell you, I'm totally in on this Zevia 0-calorie soda. I don't know why. I'm just in on it. It's very delicious. I don't know why. I just am. I like it. Thank you. 0 sugar, 0 calorie, and it tastes like cola. Can't beat that. Zevia, send us some money because that's going to cost you $25 that I just said that. Thank you. That's it for Peak Cinema. So good, Lauren. So good to have you back in the fold here on the pod. Appreciate you.
So happy to be back. We'll have to. We will not. We'll have to sit down and do some more of these. I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, you clearly have a fan base that wants to see more of them. And obviously, as we move towards the fall months, Lauren's got 5 movies already on the top of her head that she wants us to talk about. So we've got a lot coming down the road, perhaps some horror films, perhaps some Halloween-themed films, perhaps some other nonsense that maybe we'll throw out there that may have nothing to do with anything. We'll see how it goes. We've got a lot of movies on our list that we still have to watch. We got a lot going on here at the podcast, and we hope that you continue to like us. Remember also that the football pod is cranking up really soon. If you like both movies and football, Ryan and Zach are back in with me in about a couple of weeks for the Week 1 preview. And Ryan is going to join me periodically throughout the fall, hopefully every week if we can make it work for the Power Football College pod. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, really excited for that one. I know we're recording one, I think, tomorrow for the first one of that. So make sure you're tuned in.
Yes, and of course, Ty and I are going to be wrapping up the golf podcast for the season in the next few weeks as well. It's been a busy time because I'm getting back. I got to get back to the school job, all that jazz. So I want to continue to thank you for listening into the podcast, and thank you for sharing it out. Thank you for saying some positive things and all of that. If you have a chance, go rate us on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Go to Spotify, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. Share us out. Say nice things about us continually online, and retweet us. I'm at Tim Anderson Pod, Sweet Cane Music. Lauren's at Gefeck Yourself. Go figure out how to spell that. We talked about that many times over. We're on Instagram as well, on Facebook at facebook.com/Tim Podcast. So until next time, for Lauren, for Ryan, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.